Let's bring in our political panel. We have Melanie, Collette. She's the host of Money Talk with Melanie and the former vice chair of the New Jersey Federation of Republican Women. And also Theron Bond. She's a Democratic strategist. Welcome back to First Edition. I can't wait for this debate, but let's try to keep it civil, ladies.
They always do. Well, we'll start with Melanie first, though. We just heard that report from Shelby Wilder. Your thoughts on what is now occurring in Ukraine with respect to the embassy being closed and what it could mean for the new Trump administration?
Well, it's certainly going to be far more difficult on the foreign policy front, especially in Ukraine for the Trump administration, because of the way that the Biden-Harris administration, in my opinion, has completely botched foreign policy and allowed this to go on and not giving Ukraine the tools that they need in order to win this war. So it's a little, scary, certainly, that this embassy is being closed, and Trump certainly has a Herculean task on his hands in order to end this war in a way that's good for not only the Ukrainian people, but the Russian people, and ultimately the American people in the world.
Theron, the thing is, there are reports from countries like Poland in the area. People are scared. People are concerned. Was it wise for Biden to actually authorize Ukraine to use long-range missiles in Russian territory on his way out the door, as Trump is trying to strategize a way to broker peace between these two nations?
Well, the United States has had a long history of, again, butting in other countries' business. We've been sending things to Israel. We've been sending things to Ukraine. And so this was just an extended authorization of what has already been done. But I find it interesting that President-elect Trump has said wars would not exist under him, and we've already started to see effects of his incoming administration, and this could be an indicator of that. So I would be curious to what he has to say about Putin. I would be curious to see what he has to say about this war and how he thinks that if it is continuing once he is actually inaugurated in January 2025, what he intends to do to stop it. These are things we need to know now, because Biden is on his way out, Trump is on his way in, and we are already seeing the impacts of that.
But Theron, we did hear from Zelensky with respect to what he thought about President Trump and how ultimately, when he is our president, that the war would subside. He thinks that that Russia and Ukraine would come to a negotiation and the U.S. would ultimately be able to take a step back. But Melanie, we're now seeing the United States also authorizing $275 million to support a Ukraine weapons package just this week. I mean, why now are we doing this as a nation?
It seems to me it's a too little, too late kind of strategy, which is kind of a regular thing in the Biden-Harris administration, how they handle things all over the country, and certainly foreign policy is included in that. And I think at this point they don't care, and almost are trying to make things harder for President Trump to clean up the mess that they've created. It's really ridiculous to make these kind of moves, especially when we know that President-elect Trump is, even though he's not in office yet, is certainly in the midst of preparing, as are other foreign entities, for his arrival to the Oval Office, for, Daddy to be back in the room, and for everybody to straighten up and fly right and get it together and end this war finally.
Exactly. So let's pivot. The thing is, The View actually made me happy, right? First we had the slip up by Whoopi Goldberg. Now we have Sunny. She went off on the Trump nominee, Attorney General Matt Gaetz. And the thing is, guess what? Her own network made her walk it back. Watch this.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding, further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. that DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
You know, the thing is, that was beautiful. I'm going to put that on a loop, right? She looked completely miserable as she had to actually read that. Thank goodness the law department at her network came back, slapped back, and said, you're going to read this on air. What say you, Theron?
I think this is an indication, as we've also seen with other networks and other journalists, around the influence that President-elect Trump has in the heavy hand he's going to use with the media. I guarantee you that a phone call was made and that they were likely threatened to be off the air or be fined or something else that's very erroneous based on Sonny's comments. The reality is, as journalists, there are always perspectives, and people may not always agree with your perspectives. The reality is those allegations exist, and you know who I want to hear from? Not necessarily Sonny or Whoopi or anybody on The View. I actually want to hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene for once. I actually want her to release everything she knows, but I do have a bone to pick with her knowing the information and holding it hostage to manipulate whatever she may want. But she knows something, and that's who I want to hear speak now is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Air all of it out.
I agree with that. I think we do need to not just focus on if people are focusing on Matt Gaetz and what may or may not be true, we should be focusing on what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, with everyone. Air it all out. What's occurring in Congress, because there are plenty of cases that have been ultimately dismissed or paid off. But what's your take on this issue, Melanie, and Sonny's walk back?
Oh, that was excellent. That made me happy too. And I'll tell you what, as it turns out, you're legally not allowed to make allegations like that or say those kinds of salacious things without catching a case on national television. And that's why I'm sure the legal team made her walk that back, not because somebody made a phone call and threatened her. You know, when you weaponize the law, you weaponize the DOJ, that's how you get a Matt Gaetz pick for Attorney General. So if you want to blame anybody for having Matt Gaetz as the nominee for Attorney General, then you should blame the Biden-Harris administration and the Obama administration, while we're at it, for weaponizing the DOJ and going after Trump appointees, anybody who's close to Trump, Donald Trump himself. That is how you get here. We're not going to sit here, and that is certainly why I think that the lawyer said, you know what, I'm going to need you to walk that back because he was not convicted of anything. There were never any charges, and you can't say that.
That's so true. Very good point, Melanie, because the thing is that a lot of Democrats often try to blame everything on Trump, and some things are just routine business. And we also know that the ABC doesn't want to be in the same situation as CNN writing checks. But let's pivot. Many American companies are reportedly stocking up ahead of any China tariffs Donald Trump plans to put in place. Is this a fair reaction, Theron? People stocking up ahead of time?
Absolutely. Companies like Walmart, Lowe's, AutoZone, and a whole list of others have already said that if tariffs are imposed, then they won't accrue the cost. They will then pass it on to consumers. So this doesn't benefit anyone besides the companies and these CEOs who already make millions and billions of dollars year after year. And President-elect Trump said he was going to lower the cost of things, and this is not an accurate reflection of that. Elon Musk has said, well, things might be hard for a little while, and then they'll get better. But if we've already had hard and very hard, and that President-elect Trump has said he's going to reverse all of that and make everything better and put more money back into the bank accounts of millions of Americans, then I'd like to see that done. But this is not an indication of that.
But tariff battles worked out great the first time around, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Melanie, many people are talking about the tariff battles as a negative thing, but I'm curious to hear your perspective, because while in the short term it may be detrimental, it is our adversaries like China who are taking advantage of our economy and ultimately preventing us from having a supply chain that is independent of them. I mean, we need to be energy independent. We need to grow, and by relying on other countries, it's just ultimately making us weak.
That's absolutely true. And I think what it'll ultimately do is bring some of the production back here to the United States. And I would argue that buying things in advance, companies like Walmart buying things in advance, will actually be a protection and a hedge for the consumers as far as raising the price, because they've already bought them at the lower prices. So there will be no need to raise prices for consumers, at least certainly not in the short term. And I think ultimately that battle will be won, as it was won during President Trump's first administration.
That's a good point, but there is a cost of time value of money, as well as having excess capital tied up in stock that's not going to move as quickly. So there is a cost regarding that. But we do know that a tariff battle is a tactic to bring China to the table. And let's be honest here, folks. There's another element here. Yes, some of that manufacturing and production is likely to come back on shore, not all of it, but also go to other countries throughout Southeast Asia and other places, even possibly Latin America. That's a good thing, and that's going to catch the attention of China to bring them to the table in their efforts to try to hold on to that production. So, isn't that a reasonable strategy? Theron, can you see any logic in that?
No, because here's the thing. Let's assume we bring some of these companies back to America. We have to discuss the wages and the benefits of these jobs and who's going to work these jobs. And some people won't. And when you also have President-elect simultaneously saying that he's going to massively deport people, many of which who might be likely to take some of these jobs, then we may not be able to keep up as a country with production. And so we've got to deal with what President-elect Trump is saying he wants to do, but this is what he wants to do for his business friends. But we're not thinking about what's in the best interest of the American people. And again, that's not just who voted for him. And even if people are saying, oh, it may be hard temporarily, again, as President-elect Trump has indicated, we've been hard up for so long and the economy has been so bad. That means we should suffer no longer.
I got to take a chill pill because I want to jump all over that, but I'm going to restrain myself.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Melanie.
No, well, successful businesses are a benefit to the country. I don't know about any of you or my fellow panelists, but I've never received a bonus from a broke person. I've only received bonuses from successful business people. So it does benefit America when, I always hear people on the left say, oh my God, these companies made billions of dollars, as if companies are charities. They're in the business of making money. They're supposed to make billions of dollars. And that certainly benefits the American people. It results in higher wages and better benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing when companies make billions of dollars.
Right. And also,
it is because it's the company, not the people. That's the problem. The very small 1%.
The company,
my
people
goodness.
are the company. Companies are made up of people.
So Theron is against jobs. That's coming across very clearly.
No, of course not. But I am against people who make millions and billions and trillions of dollars, and people who think that it trickles down to the lower person who only makes $30,000 a year, and we know that's not true.
But Theron, I just want to
afford groceries now. What would make you think that they can
increased
afford
during the
them
first
if
Trump
tariffs
administration.
I'm writing a prescription right now for you, Theron, for you to stop hating.
Right for migraine medicine, John. I'm going to need a lot of that the next few years.
Theron, I just want to push back on one point there, too. When you're talking about American jobs and how we can't find enough people to fill those jobs, that's why we need immigrants. I mean, Jerome Powell even said he's no friend of President Trump. He even said in one of his job reports, I think the 2 cycles ago, that the reason why we have weakness in the labor market is a result of immigrants coming in and taking American jobs. So that was actually cited as a cause of why we needed to cut rates. So I just want to clarify that point because I think it's an important one.
Exactly.
Ask about people, Floridians, when those grocery shelves are going empty because those people weren't working in the orange groves, I guarantee they supply you with
I'm
a
going to
different
stop you
story.
right there. Then we have to leave it there because I know we're going to debate again next week. But here's the situation. We need to stop using the farm, like the strawberries and the lettuce and everything else. Why? Because there are specific work permits for people to come in to do those jobs because those jobs are seasonal. So we need to stop using that within the illegal migration argument. It's dead.
Well, on that note, Melanie, Collette, Theron Bond, always a pleasure. Great to have you. Thanks.
Thank
You
you.
got it.
Thank you.